Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. I'm beginning today's program with an answer to one of our listeners who talked about we live in a world where today we really don't know what to believe or who to believe. We don't know why people are lying so often when they can just be honest. How we accept or reject that honesty is up to us. But that doesn't seem to be what's going on. So I'm going to address this person's question, and hopefully others in this audience will benefit from it. I'm titling this, Why We Accept Lies and Reject the Truth. It was some years ago that I wrote a little epigraph. Honesty is not a virtue we perform. It is the light we discover. What do I mean? The first truth we refuse to look at. When we talk about living with complete honesty, and most people will say, yeah, I'd like honesty, then imagine confessing that they ate something like they ate the last slice of vegan cheesecake, or they admitted they really never liked their cousin's new husband. Simple things. But the kind of honesty I'm talking about, the kind that liberates a human being, is far more uncomfortable. It asks us to turn towards the truth we spend our lives artfully avoiding. Every generation inherits a set of beautiful illusions wrapped in ribbon and handed down like family heirlooms. We're told they represent wisdom, tradition, and progress. It binds us together. It's what gives us purpose and meaning. But if we crack open the box and look closely, frequently you discover something else, a glittering collection of cultural lies, so old they've become sacred, and we fall for them. All of us. Because the human mind, bless its hopeful little heart, desperately wants to believe the world is being run by adults, wise men and women who know what they're doing, and have us as people who will be guided, much like sitting in Socrates' garden and listening. But the lie that starts the journey is simple. Let me give you just one example, a small, simple lie that has shaped millions of young lives. A teenager sits in a guidance counselor's office. The bulletin board behind the counselor is plastered with smiling graduates in caps and gowns, each holding a symbolic diploma in a future filled with opportunities. The counselor looks at the teenager and says something like this: a good education is the foundation of a secure life. Pick a major, take on the loans, and you'll be prepared for the world ahead. But then there's the rub, the problem. The world ahead has changed. The curriculum has not. The belief has not. I have yet to see a university brochure that tells the truth that artificial intelligence and automation, the need for downsizing faculty, are already erasing entire career paths, that thousands upon thousands, even millions of jobs that these students borrowed anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 just to get a bachelor's degree. They're training, they're serious, they're hardworking, they're studying, and they believe that there'll be a job or more than one when they graduate. But they won't. Those jobs are now becoming extinct. So after you graduate with that 4-year degree, once a bridge to opportunity, it's become for many a very expensive detour. No dean stands up at orientation and says, half of this curriculum was outdated before you were born. But do enjoy the campus tour. Instead, institutions keep selling an educational model designed for the 1950s, rigid, standardized, and obedient to a world that no longer exists. The truth? It's a form of dishonesty so deep it blends into the wallpaper. And when young people feel the rug pulled out from under them, what happens? They blame themselves. Not the system, not the lie, not the false promise wrapped in a $120,000 price tag. They feel abandoned. After all, they were young. They were naive. They didn't have the skills to understand how often they are lied to for the benefit of an institution or corporation or an individual. But the truth is that cultural narratives are the lies that shape generation after generation. But the deception doesn't end in the classroom. No, that's just a warm-up. Everyday cultural and political machines broadcast narratives that divide, inflame, and hypnotize. They tell us who we're supposed to fear, who we're allowed to love, which tribe we belong to, and whose suffering we should ignore. They're the other. They deserve it. Critical race theory, wokeism, identity politics, tribalism. Depending upon who you listen to, these ideas are either the salvation of democracy or the funeral pyre. But here's the real issue. None of these institutions, not your academic, your political, your media, or religious, are asking the deeper question. They're not asking what heals a society, what brings people together rather than tearing them apart. What does it mean to be a human being before being a category? And who benefits when we're too busy arguing to notice the strings being pulled behind the curtain? The tragedy is not these narratives exist. The tragedy is that millions accept them without examination, believing that what flashes across the screen must be true because it glows. But honesty, raw, unglamorous, unedited, unvetted, non-homogenized, pasteurized, blandardized honesty requires that we pause long enough to ask, whose voice is this? Who profits when I believe them? And what part of me goes quiet when I do? Have I lost my capacity for even listening for the truth? Living with complete honesty does not begin with exposing the world's lies. A lot of activists, a lot of young idealists believe if I get out there, if I campaign against the lies, the tyranny, the genocides, the abuses, the neglect, then I'm doing the right thing. Yes and no. Because don't make one single part of your life, all of your meaning. We can master and frequently do many things in life. People don't give themselves credit for all the time, attention, discipline, and acceptance to master something. And we all master many things. You can master being a good parent, a good friend, a good companion. You can master doing your work well, so well that it's just automatic. You come up with solutions and answers. You can be counted upon. We master that, but frequently we take it for granted. We shouldn't. Many of you, especially in this audience, you've mastered healthy choices. You're willing to walk by a bakery and smell that wonderful aroma of the fresh baked breads, but not be tempted to go in and buy it. When it goes into your body, it becomes a dangerous, refined carbohydrate. You know better. And you'll go out of your way to go to a market to look for the healthiest, freshest, living and clean foods. You take your time. You want to prepare it so that it's interesting, trying different exotic tastes and flavors, enhancing it, and then making it look beautiful on a plate. All that you've mastered. The average person, the average vegan, or they open up a can of vegan chili, or vegan, baked beans. They don't do it completely. So they're kind of dabbling at it. So living with complete honesty means I'm not going to go out there and be the activist. No, that's not where it begins. It begins with exposing our willingness to believe them. So once you no longer believe the lies, then you're going to start looking for the real truths. I'll give you an example, my own personal journey. How many times was I making myself aware of a problem, doing really deep scholarship work on it, spending thousands of hours on it, like when I helped lead the charge against DDT back in the mid-1960s. There were times when I would use my radio platform out of New York and to get other people interested in the same topic. We might have 5, 10, 20 people who were interested The average person wasn't interested because they were told it's not a problem. These fanatics over here think it's a problem, but it's not. How often today would the average person, well educated, accomplished in other areas of their life, but they didn't do the homework objectively. They didn't look for the truth. They looked for some form of alignment. Well, okay, I'm aligning with a Tucker Carlson, or I'm aligning with a Sean Hannity, and they don't believe in any of this nonsense of global warming. But then there are those people who do believe in it, but don't know what to do about it. I'm just one person. I can't change the weather. I can't change, how bad a hurricane is going to be. It's nonsense. Yes, you can. You can change if you want to. But you have to first stop wanting to hear the lie and be open to the truth. The global warming is real. I've written many books, documentaries, hundreds and hundreds of discussions and lectures, led demonstrations. And in 1972, because of our collective efforts, Ralph Nader and, of course, Silent Spring was the foundational building blocks of that movement. We succeeded. Rachel Carson, the marine biologist, wonderful work. She opened the door. Those of us who cared enough went through that door. We had to learn new truths. We had to stop listening to those people who were lying. Even if they were lying with good intent, they thought they were telling the truth. They weren't. They themselves were programmed to believe in lies. That's how it is with everything in life. Today, we have no less of a conflict when it comes to the environment than we did back in 1965. Since then, there have been hundreds of demonstrations that I've led with people in this audience. 10,000 of you joined me on a spring day where we went in our cars and buses over a 10-day period, stopping at all those towns between New York and Washington, D.C., Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Allentown. We set up booths. We talked about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and why they should be labeled. So when you go into a store and you look at, let's say you want an apple, you'll know whether the apple was genetically engineered or not. We did not win that battle. Those who supported pesticides and genetic engineering and commercial farming, they had way more money and capacity to influence legislators and the people. The people are vulnerable. They're still believing the wrong voices. But we made a good effort. And at least we established a legitimacy to having a different point of view. If you don't want genetically engineered materials in your body, you should say so. But you have to look for that truth. It's not just going to come on your television. That's propaganda. Or on the internet. That's frequently misinformation. Or well-intentioned people who believe something that they have not tried to deconstruct themselves. So this whole journey means that a lot of you are alive today who would be dead. You trusted Orthodox medicine that it would provide you with all that you needed because there was only one truth, and that's their truth. They controlled everything. They had a monopoly on healing. But they didn't have a monopoly on preventing. And so then the message became, let's try to prevent disease. And even that became a war. Well, there's nothing wrong with eating white bread. No, yeah, there is. And sugar, moderation in all things. No, a moderate amount of a toxin is still a toxin, especially when we consume it on a regular basis. So those of you who are healthy today, you've mastered that. It wasn't an accident. So truth begins with exposing our willingness to believe the lies. So I don't read the New York Times or the Washington Post. I don't watch network television at all, ever. Because on every single, and I mean every single major health issue, they've been wrong. On every environmental issue, they've been wrong or late to the party. They didn't expose Love Canal. They didn't expose DDT or Aldrin or heptachlor. They didn't expose the excess use of mammography, causing more cancer than what we'll diagnose and prevent. They're still promoting synthetic hormone replacement therapy, which increases by 13%, 10 million women using it a year, increasing heart attacks, strokes, colorectal cancer, dementia, and now autoimmune illnesses. Now think of how many women have been sacrificed in their health, including dying, so that major corporations can continue to sell us dangerous products. So think of all the people involved in advertising, promoting, manufacturing, Wall Street, and all the profits they made. Can they name you a single person that their products have injured or killed? No. So it's for you to find the truth, because it's not going to come knocking on your door. It begins by acknowledging that human beings are storytellers. And sometimes the stories we love most are the ones that spare us from changing our lives. But change is coming whether we choose it or not. Artificial intelligence is rewriting the labor market. Technology is shaping identity. Institutions are losing legitimacy, all of them. And young people are waking up with sharper questions than any generation before, because the consequences of not asking those questions and not knowing who to believe and how to then protest that in a diplomatic way, a civil way. All this is at stake. The only way forward is to meet these changes with clarity, humility, and truth. Not the rehearsed truths of the past, but the living truth that arises from a mind unafraid to look directly at reality. So let's begin by reclaiming your authentic self. I once said, every morning you awaken to two choices: expand or contract. Everything else is commentary. So then let's wake up in the morning and ask, are we dealing with fear or love? Before the world barges in with its noise, its headlines, its deadlines, its relentless insistence on productivity, you have a moment, a small, short, sacred moment where you can look into the issues of life and ask yourself one simple question. Am I choosing from fear or from love? This question is a compass. It's the difference between shrinking and growing, between surviving your life and living it authentically. A lot of people pride themselves on, here I am living in this gated community down here in Florida. The weather's great, except for the occasional hurricane. And I feel really good. And then I say, what makes each day feel good? Well, it's predictable. I know what I'm going to have for breakfast. I don't have to rush out. I don't have to be in a commute. I don't have to be in a train, a plane, a bus, or a car. I don't have to be stuck in long traffic jams and stressed out. I don't have to rush through the day. I don't have to squeeze through all the people on a given street. No. I know the music I like. I like 1950s and 60s music. We play it all day here. I like people that are kind of done with living out there and now are living in this cloistered community. Okay. What about everything that continues to go wrong? That's someone else's business. I put in my time. All right. What if the people you watch on television or listen to on radio, what if they're wrong? What if they need war because they've been conditioned or believe as a neocon that war is important to deal with? What if it's not? Well, I don't really get into any of this. I'm just kind of living my life the way I want. So in other words, you've separated yourself from being responsible for the world you live in. You've cloistered yourself in this little environment. These are the gated communities. Doesn't make them a bad person. Just means that they're not going to be the ones who are demonstrating against all the inequalities and the lies and the consequence of those lies when we become part of a group think, a psychosis of the majority. Many people begin their day with fear curled around them like a wet coat. Fear of losing a job, fear of not saving enough, fear that you spent too much on things you didn't need with money you really didn't have. You overused your credit cards. You bought things for people out of guilt or shame, or the need to stay relevant. Fear that the ache in their joints or the fog in your minds might finally be the beginning in diabetes or arthritis or cognitive decline. Fear from relationships where two good people simply stopped harmonizing but still cling to the idea that suffering equals commitment. Fear makes the world small. Fear makes possibility feel dangerous. Fear makes yesterday's limitations feel like tomorrow's prophecy. And when you live from fear, you don't paint, you don't sing, you don't take a chance, you don't walk down a different street just to see who you might become. You're too busy guarding what you think you're about to lose. But when you choose love, even a fragile, trembling love, suddenly life begins to breathe again. The world expands. Doors you didn't know existed quietly swing open. So every morning before the headlines and the emails and the obligations rush in, ask yourself, fear or love? It only takes a moment, but it can reroute the entire day. I also believe that we should be naming our patterns of behavior. Why? Because that can lead to a liberation, calling things for what they are. The next step is simple but not easy. Name it. We all have emotional reflexes that ambush us. Jealousy, resentment, self-doubt, judgment. If you pretend they're not there, they run your life from the shadows. But the moment you say, this is envy, this is old anger, this is grief wearing a new mask, the pattern softens. You reclaim authorship of your inner life. Think of the loneliness so many people feel today. People who once dated easily, tried things in life, were not afraid. They laughed freely. They shared hope for the future. Now, I call it a new concept I've created for myself. Maybe you've heard it. I haven't. Aging out. What do I mean? Having created the first in-depth, holistic anti-aging protocols, and having people, I'm now in my 6th study, we're only 3 months from finishing a 9-month protocol. We were the first in the world to show that we could actually not just slow down the aging process. We've known that for a long time, and there have been thousands of articles written on it. There are all kinds of groups, the physicians group, the nurses group, who showed, well, if you don't smoke, if you don't drink, if you exercise, if you're not so sedentary, if you eat the right amount of calories, you'll live a little longer. Okay. Just working a night shift for more than 10 years can knock years off your life. Not being able to sleep at night, sleep through, let's say 7-8 hours, can shorten your life. We know this. We actually have measurements of if you drink alcohol, whether it's wine or beer or hard whiskey, how long your organs are going to live. We have a good handle on that. But that's not the same as actually reversing the aging process. And three efforts, and we showed that people were a lot healthier. I mean, a lot healthier. People came into the study with diabetes and arthritis and high blood pressure, who came in with memory loss, weakness of muscle, loss of muscle mass, aging skin, thinning of the hair, all types of conditions. At the end of the study, those people had substantially improved from those symptoms. So their immune systems were kicking in again. That's different than actually reversing how old at the biological level, the cellular level, your DNA level, your body actually is. Now there are a couple tests. One is a telomere test, the end caps your chromosomes, and the other is a methylation DNA test that can actually tell you right now how old is my kidney, my heart, my brain, my muscles, and therefore how long should I expect to live, or how long before these break down. That's revolutionary. Unfortunately, almost all the science in that field is focusing upon petri dishes, stem cell development, all of which is important, and I fully support it. But I wanted to take on something different. I wanted to work with real people, a whole person, not just a cell. I wanted to see if I could stimulate new cell growth, new stem cell in a person that's older. Now we find out, for example, eating 2 ounces of pure cacao, which is 100% raw chocolate, each day can actually rebuild new stem cells in the heart. In effect, you're regrowing a new heart. Imagine what that will do for people who have defective hearts for whatever reason, something other than mechanical defects. It can allow them to be completely different. So I'm almost completed with that study. And a lot of the people entering this study were at a place in their life where they'd kind of given up. Well, it's inevitable. It's my age. So what about your age? What don't you? Well, we're told we can't go dancing with young people. That was, 30 years ago. So once we hit 40, suddenly we were no longer considered like vital, no longer, we were already damaged merchandise. Says who? Who says how old you are? And they don't even know how old you are at your biological level. And that's the only age that you count. And why are we so enamored by this concept of ageism? If you're no longer tight-skinned and you're no longer muscular and you're no longer attractive physically, then somehow go away. Go to some place go play golf and wear golf clothes. So unfortunately, what happens is a lot of those people as they age, especially starting at age about 40 and on, they're staring at an empty pillow beside them and wondering, when did my life get this small? I'm functionally depressed, but I'm outwardly polished. I'm inwardly aching. I'm missing so many things that I took for granted when I had them, didn't appreciate them. Yeah. Well, now you're learning a new truth, that every single action in life has a consequence. And that dispels the lie. You can do anything in moderation. Well, what's moderate? And then we start realizing the lies we've been told about everything. So naming the feeling doesn't weaken you. It frees you. And with love, you can tell yourself, I'm not done yet. I'm not about to give up. Because you're not. Your story didn't end. It was on pause. Now, because of all the crisis, you can no longer stay silent. You can no longer just kind of stay a very small life lived. You're going to bring balance back in there, the strength we forgot we need. Try to remember this, if you would, please. Make a note of it. Balance is my strength. Now, let me explain what balance is not. Balance is not, well, I ate an orange, Gary, on Monday, so I can eat a pizza on Tuesday, a hot dog on Wednesday, French fries on Thursday, a steak on Friday. Yeah, I'm okay. No, you're not. Balance is not, I yelled at someone today. Yeah, I shouldn't have weaponized my words. I wanted them to feel pain because I was frustrated. I don't know what'll happen with the words I yelled at them. But I gave $1 to a homeless person on my way to work today, so we're good, right? No, that's not good. That's not balance. That's bargaining with your conscience. Real balance means you maintain your emotional, spiritual, intellectual, creative, and cultural equilibrium. It means not stacking your entire life on one teetering tower, especially the tower labeled career. But today, we have an epidemic of overachievers, tens of millions of people climbing invisible ladders, each chasing a golden ring dangling just out of reach. You know these people. Maybe some of you are those people. Waking up at 5 a.m. to check the Asian markets, work late at night to impress your bosses who don't know their children's names, hire nannies, dog walkers, tutors, cleaners, assistants, because their own life is oversourced, outsourced, fragmented, and slipping away. And for what? To help someone else earn a slightly larger bonus? To make yourself more relevant in the workspace? Corporate America never promotes balance. It consumes it with a smile. There's a true story about the lawyer who could only eat 3 foods. A woman came to see me, a Wall Street attorney from a prestigious firm, impeccable resume, attractive, a tailored outfit, and an exhausted spirit. Her younger sister brought her in, and sister listens to my show on a regular basis, and the sister looked like a modern-day flower child. Flowing dresses, hair like a meadow in a breeze, a natural ease that can't be faked. She slid a folder across my desk with a smile and said, "She can only eat 3 foods. Can you help?" Inside was a list of 96 foods the attorney could not eat, and exactly 3 she could. "Gary, what do you suggest?" "Nothing," I said. And she blinked. And "Why did you bring your sister here?" I asked. "Because I've listened to you for 30 years. I've seen what you do. I'm healthy because of your work." "But your sister doesn't need a supplement. She needs her life back." Well, the sister, the lawyer, bristled, got angry, made some statement I didn't hear, and left the room. Several weeks later, she returns, now down to just 2 foods. It wasn't food she was allergic to, it was her own life. Her lab work showed sky-high cortisol and adrenaline. Her immune system wasn't malfunctioning, it was drowning. She was working from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. As a result, she had no friends, no family visits, no joy, no balance, no creativity, no just taking time for yourself, no sitting and relaxing and watching a movie or going to a play or ballet, no just walking and window shopping, none of that. She couldn't go for a jog in Central Park. No, that took too much time. You can't heal from the symptoms if you refuse to examine the cause. There's your honesty. So I took her and her sister to the Bowery to see people whose lives had collapsed under the weight of their own imbalances, addiction, despair, abandonment, suffering. Not to shame her, but to show her where an unexamined life ultimately leads. 2 days later, she decided to take a sabbatical. A month alone in Colorado. Beautiful state, quiet, close to nature, no deadlines. When she returned, she said, "I've been living a lie." Within 3 weeks, her allergies vanished. Her immune system calmed. She smiled genuinely, her sister said, for the first time in years. She decided to leave the corporate law and begin a life that nourished rather than depleted her. That is balance. Not a retreat, a reclamation. So what does this mean? Balance means raising the best version of yourself even higher. Not by doing more, working harder, by doing what matters. It means for every hour you spend working, claim an hour of joy, friendship, learning, or rest, exploration, new ideas, new thoughts. For every project that drains you, create something that replenishes you. For every step you take towards achievement, take one towards fulfillment. Balance doesn't shrink your life, it expands it. It restores your center, it renews your strength, it makes you whole. But then, one day we wake up and we have to face our life. Another epigraph. Your environment is not where you live. It's what you become within it. So let's start learning how we can enhance our environment. I call it the art of creating a life that feels like yours. For nearly my entire adult life, I lived in New York City. And I'll tell you the truth, I never once thought of my apartments as home. They were service stations, little way stations where I laid my head between long days of work. I love the city. I couldn't have been happier. In fact, frequently living here on my animal sanctuary, surrounded by nature and beauty, and my hobby of creative landscaping, I feel pleasure in this. But I used to do the same thing when I had the Fertile Farm for 15 years, 1970 to 85. And then the home on Lake Apacon, a large parcel land that I put in all kinds of flowers and trees. People said, well, you can't do that. It's too steep an incline. No, I did it. I terraced it. But that was on the weekends. During the week, loved the city, the people, the cultures, the excitement, the challenges, all the opportunities. It's like everyone came here because what they could do in New York, they couldn't necessarily do in their small towns. Different environment. But it didn't belong in any of those apartments. They certainly didn't belong to me. Then 30 years ago, something shifted. I came here, I designed my home from scratch, and I built it with intention, with my own hands, and I was the general contractor. And I hired people from a halfway house, people who had all had addiction problems. And there were 22 of us, and every day we worked. And so now I live in a place that is home because I built it with my own hands, the landscaping, all of it. And so now it feels comfortable. It's not like how we maladapted little tiny apartments in New York. So now, with my heart stitched into every corner, and for the first time, I walked into a space that felt like me, a place where the environment didn't drain me, but restored me. Even in New York, and I was in a brownstone, 5,000 square feet, over on 84th and Riverside Drive. Lots of space. That's where I started the Tri-State Healing Center on 2 floors. I lived on 2 floors. But nothing ever felt comfortable. The noise at night, the wind because of an old building, the creaking steps, how long it took to clean the place because I like clean environments. But it was okay. You adapt to it. Because when I lived there first in New York, it was a tiny little one-room place. I'm guessing around 300 square feet. So I made it work, because I could always go a half a block to Riverside Park, Soldiers and Sailors Memorial, and sit there. When my daughter played, I would write, but I could look out at the Hudson River. So that became my home away from home. Walk the other direction, go to the New Yorker bookstore, an old radicalized bookstore, or see the art movies there. So then you make the environment you live in a part of your living space as well. And at that time, so many different small businesses, so many people, so many of us who were so young in our 20s and had faith and belief. We were so optimistic and we supported one another. It reminded me of the 1950s when people left cramped city apartments for the suburbs, thrilled to have a patch of grass, a backyard, a little silence. They weren't running away. They were running towards something that felt more human. They didn't have to hear all the cars and sirens and screaming, all the city in your living room, your bedroom. But look where we are today. People renting glorified cubicles without a kitchen or bathroom for $1,200 a month, calling it urban living. We normalize absurdity because we've forgotten to ask the most basic question, an honest question. Is this where I should be? We tell ourselves lies. My career is here. There's nowhere else I could live. This is just how life is now. No. That resignation disguised as reason doesn't work. Your environment shapes your spirit. Your surroundings influence your nervous system. When you wake, where you work, where you rest, these things matter. Even this morning, when I get up at 4 and I'm looking at the different Metro reports to see what's happening, more people stabbed, burned. One person in Chicago nearly caused a woman's death, set her on fire. That was his 73rd time that he had been arrested. And yet, the system was a set of lies. And now we're seeing the consequences. Let's make shoplifting no longer a crime. $950, walk away with it. What happens if 2,000 people go into a store in one day and say, $950, I got a calculator, it's mine now, but you didn't earn it. You'll destroy this person's livelihood. We don't care. I see. So when an individual within a society that has managed to work together, respect each other, suddenly realizes, I don't have to do anything. I can create my own reality. Well, how will that affect other people? 5% of American population that is completely dysfunctional, that never do well, should not dictate the moral values, the social norms of the 95%. Yet that's exactly what has happened. So now you can live in a $20 million apartment overlooking Central Park West or South or Fifth Avenue and think this is beautiful. Will you go in there at night? Absolutely not. No. I'm safe up here. And my driver will take me where I have to go, so I'll be safe in commuting. There are places I can go where I'm less likely to get impacted. So in other words, you've maladapted to where the environment you're living in is completely dangerous and unpredictable. The people who could take control of your life hurt you, slash you. 2 people just 2 days ago were slashed in the face, just for no reason, standing on a subway platform. And yet we consider that normal. It isn't. So we adapt to that. That's a lie. We shouldn't. That's not the only place you should be. You deserve a space that reflects not the frantic demands of the world, but the quiet truth of who you are. Small corrections can make a difference. Now that you understand balance and self-checking and naming the pattern, let's talk about the most powerful form of change. Small corrections. People imagine transformation as some grand spiritual event, some bright lights, angels humming, a dramatic breakthrough moment. But real change, no, doesn't happen that way. It's more like a tightrope walker making micro adjustments all day long. Take a breath, slow down, shift your attention, and start small. Clean a drawer. Yeah, just one drawer. Clean it. Then move to the next. Clean under the bed. Clean the blinds, the attic, the basement, the garage. And by the way, if you clean your blinds once in your life, you deserve a medal. We both know most people haven't dusted their blinds since the Reagan administration. Detox your environment. You'll be amazed how much better you feel when the visual noise is gone and the space breathes life again. Now open your cleaning cabinet. Count the 25 toxic bottles lurking there. Get rid of them. Replace them with natural alternatives. Then try one healthier food swap, one veggie burger for hamburger. But for heaven's sakes, make sure it's not a genetically engineered lab burger that glows in the dark. That's all. Small, consistent corrections. If you make just one improvement a week, you'll have made over 104 changes in a year. That's not evolution. That's revolution disguised as housekeeping. Then let's be very conscious in our consumption. There's an ethic behind every choice. Once your environment is cleaned, let's elevate your awareness outward. Bring in really good books, real honest books, so you can recalibrate your understanding of history and yourself. Then ask, what am I relying on? Well, you're relying upon your bank, your clothes, your car, your smartphone, your computer. If you bank at a place that's charging you 8% on mortgage interest, 18% interest on credit cards, 36% when you miss a payment, that's not a financial institution. It's a polite form of legalized predation. Move to a quality credit union. Do your homework. Choose a credit union that didn't sink in 2008 because they were too busy gambling with your money. Then consider your clothing. I design many of my own clothes, not because I'm a fashion icon. No, but because I refuse to support systems where women in Bangladesh and India and China and elsewhere are exploited for pennies a day. I also used to be the top nutritionist with the International Ladies Workers Garment Union, and I help hundreds and hundreds of women lose weight, get over diabetes, high blood pressure. In fact, I got them to get a place that had a big commercial kitchen, and we'd go there and I'd show them how to cook. Take their dishes, because they're used to a certain mouthfeel, aftertaste, aroma, and give them the same dish, but make it all healthy. Even the snacks they eat all day long when they're sitting at the sewing machines, made healthy snacks. And over the years, they lost thousands of pounds and regained their health, and now they can spread that within their communities. So yeah, I want to see that if you say you support women or ethics or justice, then let your purchases reflect that truth. Otherwise, you're living a lie. And don't get me started on electric vehicle batteries. If people saw the mines in Africa where cobalt and lithium are harvested, children inhaling toxic dust from cell phones and car raw materials, the moral equation will become painfully clear. Keep this in mind. Awareness is a light. Once you turn it on, everything becomes illuminated. What if I told you that the average American consumes over 110 chemicals that are harmful every single day? Not one bad choice, not 5, but 110. Through food, air, cosmetics, detergents, packaging, residual pesticides, the list goes on. And 90 to 93% of Americans intentionally make daily choices that harm them. Not out of malice, out of habit, out of denial, out of a comfortable life. Well, it won't happen to me, Gary. But then the doctor walks in, looks at your scans and says, Robert, you need a triple bypass. Robert says, what happened? What happened? 3 packs of cigarettes a day happened. A bottle of alcohol at night happened. French fries as a food group happened. The universe didn't do it to you. Your choices did. And now it's time to reclaim responsibility and power. The people who tell you the truth are accountable partners. When you're making life changes, you need an accountability partner. Not someone who rescues you, not someone who needs to rescue you, not someone who enables you, not someone who nods politely while you repeat the same self-sabotaging pattern. You need someone who says, that relationship is toxic. I'm proud of you for walking away. I see your potential, not your excuses. Relationships may not last. Friendships can, when they're based upon honesty, loyalty, kindness, and joy. I've always made time for my friends. Every week in New York, we go out to dinner, to a movie, to a play. Our unspoken rule, no one gets to talk about their profession. They wouldn't lecture me about, let's say, law or neurology. I wouldn't lecture them about nutrition. Instead, we talked about humor and life, odd stories, strange dreams, the meaning of everything, the absurdity of most things, and sometimes the meaning of nothing at all. We lived and we laughed, and we walked to plays, concerts, little cafes on the West Side. Some nights we'd have a group so large we'd take over an entire restaurant. These evenings were nourishment, emotional food of the highest order. Don't call someone a friend unless you're actually engaging them. There's also the case of one of my friends. Many of the people in this audience saw him as a physician, Dr. Martin Feldman. Marty chose truth over status. He was one of my closest friends for 45 years. He was one of the sharpest neurologists of his generation, number 1 at Yale Medical School, Columbia Physicians and Surgeons, Mount Sinai, 68 peer-reviewed papers when I met him, the kind of resume that makes most doctors straighten their posture. He came to me in 1970 when I was doing a lecture at the Waldorf Astoria, And he listened to some of the world's pioneers in vitamins and nutrition. I had Dr. Albert Szent-Györgyi there, who won the Nobel Prize. Linus Pauling was there, many others. And the Shoup brothers from Canada, the world's leading experts on vitamin E. And afterwards, he stood in line until every other person had left. And he said, Gary, my patients are getting well when they come see you. They tell me this. They don't get well when they come see me. I can't keep pretending I don't see it. Can I just sit in your office at some point and try to learn a different way of approaching? I said, sure. And for the next 14 months, he did exactly that. 7 days a week, quiet. He'd sit on a black couch in the back of the room, learning without ego. He eventually said, Gary, I got it. And from that day forward, he only charged patients if he could help them. Think of that. And even then, only a small amount. He spent time with people, sometimes an hour. He cared, and they healed. After he passed, his staff told me that every Thursday morning, he would talk about the previous evening that we spent together, the dinners, the plays, the laughter, the walks up Broadway. It was the highlight, they told me, of his week. That is a good friendship. He never told me that, but that's what friendship is: unspoken loyalty, mutual joy, deep appreciation. So let's begin to fill our life with love. When you surround yourself with love, friendships, humor, honesty, life becomes infinitely more manageable. Problems don't vanish. You simply meet them with a larger spirit. Laughing boosts the immune system. Meditation softens stress. Community extends lifespan. And a good friend can save your sanity faster than any pharmaceutical. So when anger arises, do what your grandmother would have told you. Hold on there. Take 10 slow breaths. Inhale, exhale. Return to yourself. Your body will thank you, your relationship will thank you, and your spirit will finally have room to grow. We've talked about accountability partners, the people who hold space for your better self. But accountability begins long before a conversation with another person. It begins in a quiet room with a pen in hand before you drift into sleep. I want you to imagine this nightly ritual as a gentle turning inward, a soft review, not a harsh critique. You sit on the edge of your bed or lie back against your pillows and ask yourself 3 simple questions. These questions are the doorway to a wiser life. 1, what did fear choose for me today? We often don't recognize or realize how many of our choices come from fear. Sometimes it's fear of losing a job, fear of disappointing someone, fear of not being enough, fear of aging, fear of being alone, fear of failing, fear of succeeding. The whole catalog of anxieties our culture so expertly nurtures. Fear doesn't always appear as trembling. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion. Sometimes it masquerades as responsibility, but it leaves a trail. And if you look closely, you'll see where it learned that it could look over your shoulder and whisper in your ear, don't try that. Stay small, stay safe. You don't want to fail, do you? Stay quiet. Become part of us, the silent majority. So just noticing this is a victory. You can't change what you refuse to see, but once you see it, fear then loses control. Number 2, what did balance feel like in my body today? Now, this question is essential because the body speaks the truth long before the mind does. When you're living a balanced life, you don't have to convince yourself you're doing well. You feel it. When you're eating clean, healthy foods, you feel lighter. When you're exercising daily, running, biking, hiking, power walking, your muscles remember what vitality feels like. When you keep promises to yourself, the mirror becomes friendlier. When you wake up with energy, you carry a sense of self-respect into every room. That's what balance looks like. That's what reflection confirms. Yes, I'm doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time. So write it down. Feel it in your bones. Reinforce the behaviors that nourish you. And finally, what patterns of the dark side did I express today? None of us escape the darker corners of our personality. Envy, pride, judgment, gossip, negativity. These are not sins. They are signals. They tell you something inside you needs healing. I learned this lesson decades ago while helping a brilliant colleague, a person with both an MD and a PhD. He was smart, compassionate, incredibly capable. He did everything right on paper, yet he continually relapsed into destructive habits. No diet, no exercise regime, no wellness protocol seemed to stick. One day it struck me, his problem wasn't knowledge. His problem was the unseen wounds he refused to acknowledge, his weakest link. He had built a beautiful house on a cracked foundation. All the good he did for his patients, for his community, his family, could not carry him beyond the damage he kept locked away. This is true for all of us. We grow only to the strength of our weakest point. So think of all the time and energy we put into showing the public our best side. And we all have a best side. Everyone I've ever met has the strength that they've mastered and the weaknesses they've hidden. And yet we put almost all of our energy into our strengths. And that's good. But you must also put your strengths into your weaknesses. You must face them, embrace them, no matter how much self-humiliation or anger we may feel for the mistakes we've made in life. We can't let that be the harbinger of our future, tether us out of fear. There's a hidden duality within us. Each of us carries two selves. The bright self, the achiever, the helper, the responsible one. The darker self, the fearful, wounded, insecure parts no one sees. Only one can lead at a time. When you're on familiar ground, the bright side shines. You look successful, stable, disciplined. But when you approach the threshold of change, a new relationship, a new job, a new dream, a new self, a new relationship of some type that you haven't had before, the dark side steps out and blocks the doorway. It tells you survival stories that stopped serving you years ago. You can't leave. It won't work. You can't manage that. You'll fail. You're not ready. You're not worthy. Your heart knows better. Your conditioning does not. So here's the practice. Sit quietly. Write down the lies I've told myself, the lies others told me, and I believed. Read each one aloud. Name it. Feel the weight of it. Then say, gone. You don't have to burn the paper on, do anything like that. Doesn't have to be dramatic. Just the power in the naming, the speaking, and the conscious release. This ritual creates space. It frees the wiser, stronger parts of your energy. It clears the closet. It dissolves the fog. It removes the invisible ceiling. It opens the road ahead. There are two other forces that quietly sabotage personal evolution. Denial, pretending something isn't there, and disconnection, pretending something isn't yours. Denial says, I don't have a problem. Disconnection says, even if I do, it isn't affecting me. Both are traps. Both keep you stuck. So I ask you to write down one truth you've avoided, just one. Then take one small step, a phone call, conversations change, a new boundary towards facing yourself. Then check it off. Surrender the negative attached to it. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to begin. So these are some ideas about why we lie, why we accept lies, and why we should be seeking the truth, even at times if it makes us no longer acceptable to other people. But it makes it more acceptable to yourself. Share this with others if you find it a benefit. Thank you for watching and sharing.